Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste.
Namaste.
A very warm welcome to everybody who's come through to our Back to the Veda lecture. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Karuna Mohan, and I'm a member of the Executive Committee of the Arya Pratinidhi Sabha. I work in the Ved Niketan Standing Committee, which is an institute that does research, attends to publications, publicity, public lectures like this one, and the graded examinations in Hinduism. I was appointed to moderate this year's lectures to enable us to consolidate the outcomes and share them widely. Of course, this month, the Arya Samaj celebrates the 150 years of its existence with a Mahasammelan in New Delhi. And we are fortunate that our president, as well as Swami Vedanand and a few other distinguished members of the Arya Samaj will be attending this Mahasammelan. We are also at the tail end of our 100th anniversary celebrations. So the Arya Samaj in South Africa is 100 years old, while the Arya Samaj itself as an organization is 150 years old. Now, the Back to the Vedas lecture series this year has been dedicated to this commemoration, and it replaced the need to have a physical conference. And so we organized the 2025 lectures under the theme Past, Present, and Future. And while South Africa celebrates 100 years and we celebrate 150 years of the Arya Samaj itself, it's important for us, not just in South Africa, but all over the world, to look and plan for the next 100 years of the Arya Samaj being in existence. In this series this year, we've covered the early history as sub-themes and are really grateful to Professor Ghulam Wahid, Professor Brij Miraj, who came through with their research and highlighted the early history of the Arya Samaj and explained to us who were the trailblazers that gave form and shape to the Arya Samaj, as well as what was the context in South Africa and globally. Dr. Mahabir, a member of the Arya Samaj, presented on the Aryan Benevolent Home, and Bhai Hiralal Sunat covered the building of the Vedic mandirs from his individual personal observations and views. Professor Vishwas Satkar of Wits University delivered a lecture on climate change and its impact and what we should be looking at and focusing on in the Arya Samaj. And then Professor Ashwin Desai from the University of Johannesburg spoke on the struggle for liberation, explaining Hindu activism right from when indentured settlers came to the country. Nishan Bolton, by Nishan Bolton, covered the South African dilemma on inequalities and identity. And last month, Dr. Bisram, our very own Dr. Bisram, presented his research on the early Vedic priests in South Africa. Most of these lectures are available either in the Ved Jyotis, which are available on the website, or on our YouTube page. That's the Arya Samaj YouTube page. Today's lecture is under the theme Sanskars, and we're focusing on Vedic rites as practiced in South Africa. In previous lectures, we heard about the historical context, the responses that people made to the context they found themselves, the struggles to practice their religion. And we all know that today we have religious freedom in South Africa. So we're free to practice whatever our religion and culture is. Now, Vedic rites and rituals in the Arya Samaj is set out in the Sanskar Vidhi. And allied to these rites and rituals are traditions and culture. Traditions and culture get reshaped over the years and over time, depending on the context and the conditions. There are three areas of life that all religions have very set rituals and rites, and that is birth, death, and marriage. Today we will hear and discuss what are the Vedic rites that we take forward. Of course, with Bollywood and social media playing a very big role in many people's lives, the cultural practices are being reshaped and being reshaped very rapidly with song, music, dance. But despite this, the essence of Vedic rituals remains sacrosanct as indicated and as directed in the Sanskar Vidhi. Today it gives me immense pleasure to introduce you to our speaker, my very own Pai from Pietermaritzburg, but now resident in Durban, Pandit Yuvesh Sundar, who is the head of our Vedic Purohit Mandal. As an educator, he's obviously focusing very carefully on the training of priests, and Yuvesh is currently the head of the head of department of the Hillview Primary School in Durban. And he's been teaching for some 27 years, 6 of which have been not in South Africa, but in the UK in Birmingham. He served also as vice and acting president of the Vedram Sabha in Pietermaritzburg. Without further delay, I'd like to now hand you over to Pandit Yuvesh Sundar. Paji, please unmute.
Thank you, Karana. Revered Panditjis, members of the Back to the Veda committee, parents, family, and people of the greater Arya Samaj, my namaste to one and all. Okay. Today's topic is actually a very important topic because it actually ties up with an essay on when I did my honors and what it was called the emergence of institutionalized Hinduism in South Africa. So when I looked at this topic, and my friend Pandit Usha is not here today, she actually told me, you know this topic, go out there and do your best. Right. So my topic I'm looking at is, and what it is called, the Vedic rites as practiced in South Africa. Now, I've actually done my essay in 3 parts. 1, the indentured Indians, what they did pre-Arya Samaj. 2, I'm looking at the first preachers and all the stalwarts of the Arya Samaj and what did they do in preserving and promoting the Vedic rites in South Africa. And then 3, I will look at the current Vedic rites and rituals that are practiced in South Africa. It's a very vast topic. For the last year and a half, my wife said, with all the work that went in this, you could have written your own book and theses as well. Well, let's see if I do justice to this topic. Okay, now, as we know, on the 16th of November, 1860, the first lot of indentured Indians come to South Africa on the Trudeau. And a week or so later, the second batch of indentured Indians or Girimitias, as we know, come to South Africa to work in the sugarcane plantation. Now, As we know, life on the estates and plantation was not easy. They lived under subhuman condition. Life was difficult, extremely difficult, in that many of the indentured Indians actually took their lives or actually ran away, and a lot of them also had mental illnesses as well. Now, life was so tough. Like any immigrant population, the first thing one looks at is finding shelter. Now, housing, they either lived in barracks with 4 or 5 families put together, no privacy, uh, no running water, and animal like conditions. Life in the barracks was difficult. But like any immigrant population, even today for that matter, the first thing one does is to find a house. Two, look for to find or build a house. Two, to um, build education or educate their children. And three, what does the Indian immigrant population do? Place of worship. Now, as I did say, they lived under slave-like conditions. Now, although they lived on under slave-like conditions, they actually did not let their feelings defeat them. What do they do? Right? So they, in the evenings, away from home, strange land, strange country, what do they do? Turn to their culture. Remember, yes, you and I may call them illiterate, old fashioned, superstitious, backward people, but they came from an ancient culture and civilization dating back to 12 to 13,000 years now. But so what do they turn to? They turn to their stories, their kathas, and especially the stories of Ram and Sita. Now, these stories and kathas lifted up their spirits, and historical records reveal that despite violence met upon them by their bosses and the harsh treatments by the recruiters, they turned to music and drama that kept their spirit alive. Now, as I did say, they slowly, although life was the wage was very poor, life was difficult. It was slave-like conditions, but around the late 1880s, slowly but surely, they decided to build a place of worship. And we see this especially in KZN. And some of the institutions that were built by them was 1880, the Somsi Road Temple, which was near the Somsi Road, and which was built by the employees of the Durban Corporation, the railway barracks, and the magazine barracks. Okay. Right, so we see first lot of temples. Then we see the Sri Gopala temple built by Babu Talwan Singh around 1880, and the Amgeni Road temple 1885. Now these temples served as a very powerful place of comfort for the indentured Indians, where many found it as a place where they could express their anger, their grief, and it is at these temples that communal, communal worship, marriages, and ceremonies were celebrated. A lot of festivals were also celebrated. Now, what are some of the rituals or practices done by the indentured Indians? So now remember, a lot of priests were not allowed, or the Brahmin class were not allowed into the ancient colonies, be it Trinidad, Guyana, or Mauritius. But a lot of them sneaked in by changing name and changing caste. Right, so I'm not going to go into that, but a few of them did come in South Africa, plus minus 80 over the 40 or 50 years, slowly creeped into South Africa. So, due to them having come from Brahmin caste, they took the opportunity to capitalize on the indentured Indians. Now, let's look at some of the rituals and rites that were done by the indentured Indians. Firstly, birth rituals. The common one was the chatti. Now, I'm looking more so here amongst the Hindi speaking or the North Indians. God forgive me. I don't know much of the South Indian customs and traditions. So, amongst the North Indian speaking, the chatti was celebrated. This was normally done on the sixth day to celebrate the birth of the child. And this is normally to please the Kul Devatas, the Gram Devatas, as well as please Mother Earth, and thank that both child and mother is well. Then we have on the 12th day what we call the Barahi or Barahi ceremony. Now, the Barahi ceremony was celebrated because by the 12th day, both mother and child are more or less healthy and well. And this was done. Now, here we look at a little ceremony that is called the Chatawan ceremony, similar to the Namkaran ceremony. Now, basically, no mantras were recited, but they took a bit of ghee, honey, and made the and touched it on the tongue of the child. And when one looks at the Namkaran and Jatkaran, we look at it, we see the mantras where we recite, the Om is written on the tongue of the child. Next sanskar, next ceremony that was rites that was done was the Muran sanskar. Now here, families would go to the sea, the child's hair was removed, and that hair was placed in a loya and was dispersed off in the sea. The next one is the Vivah Sanskars. Now, the Vivah Sanskar here was done strictly according to Sanatan rites, starting from the Tilak ceremony to the Bhatwan, Pelwan, Telwan, all these little rituals which originated in the northeastern part of India, UP, Bihar, Chhattisgarh. So these ceremonies were done. And finally, the Vivah Sanskar was done at around 2 or 3 in the morning. Now, what we've also got to remember is that although these so-called priests who did the Vivah Sanskars, many of them probably didn't do these Sanskars according to the Sanskar Vidhi, right? Now, here, and probably their voice was drowned because the entire night while different acts of the wedding ceremony was done, folk songs were sung. So probably these folk songs drowned the voice of the Purohits, and they having little knowledge of the sanskars, probably they couldn't decipher what the Pandit was saying as well. Right. Now, then comes the Upanayan Sanskar or the Yajnopavit Sanskar. Now, here, not much is actually known about it when they actually did it. But one sees actually in the 30s and the 40s amongst the Brahmin or the so-called Maharaj caste. Now, they do it for their sons to be initiated so that their sons can do a havan, do a wedding, and they are initiated into so-called Brahmanhood. Now, as we know, the Havan is the central focus in all Arya Samaj sanskars. Now, what did the indentured Indians do? Now, a lot of them did a little ceremony called an Agyari ceremony, right? It was exactly like a Havan, but an area was set aside where it was leaped with gobar, cow dung. A little fire was lit. Now, during the indentureship, your Havan Samagri and your other utensils and ingredients for the Havan was not available. So this fire was lit with whatever little mantras they could say, and a mixture of ghee, sugar, and honey was offered, and the various names of devis and devatas was um recited. So a simple form of havan. And but on the other hand, we shouldn't mock them or look down upon the indentured Indians for keeping their culture alive, because it is these little rituals that they brought with them that kept their culture alive and made them strong Hindus. Now, later on, we see that ceremonies like the Satnarayan Vrat Katha, the Hanuman Jhanda, Devi and Kali Puja as well. An animal sacrifice was done. And a very common prayer amongst them was the Pancho Puja, where people in different districts got together annually and they would do a prayer for the community as well. Now, also, uh, puja for the sun or Surya Puja was done in the morning, where families would get up, offer a lota of water to Surya Devata or Surya Bhagwan as he was known. Now, a lot of these, the indentured Hindus that came from North India also belonged to the Kabira and Narayana Panthis. Now, these are bhakti groups in northeastern India, and a lot of it was Guru worship. Kabir, we all know Kabir Das and Sunarayan Panti. So they would get together and sing these, what we call Santo Bhajans. And even today, just a handful of these people, or these what they call satsangis, are still available. You can still find them in the area of North Dean in Durban, and they still carry on with the Siu Narayan as well as the Siu Narayan Panthis. They carry on with the and Kabira Panthis with the bhajans. Right now, for about 50 years, we don't have any scholars coming to South Africa. So it was basically uh, little prayers and rituals that done. Now, at the same time, we see Christian missionaries taking advantage of the economic situation of the Hindus in South Africa. And how do they take advantage? By providing education. A lot of the free-born Indians or colonial-born Indians were educated in missionary schools. And a lot of them, we see it amongst our members today. We have people with the surname of David and John and David and Matthias and Matthews as well. So a lot of them accepted Christianity, but some of them, just to be educated, they took on Christian names, but at home, they did whatever little practices done at home. Now, what happens in 1905? Who comes in? Bhai Parmanand. Anyway, by the way, Parmanand is my second name. Now, Bhai Parmanand arrives in 1905 on the 5th of August. Now, he is the first person or first missionary to come into South Africa. And he created such an impact that even to this day, although not many people know about Bhai Parmanand, but he educated the Hindus on their religious beliefs, and he helped create self-respect and dignity in all Indians. Now, what's a good part about Bhai Parmanand is that he was fluent both in English as well as in Hindi, and he establishes the HYMA. But we've got to give him respect because he teaches them self-respect and dignity. Right. Then the next person that comes in 1908, a divine intervention arrives in South Africa. And who is that? The arrival of Swami Shankaranandji. sannyas. Right now, the greatest impact that Swamiji had was to raise the spirits of Hinduism amongst the Hindus. He created self respect in them, and that his work made the Hindus realize that they should be proud of their that they were Hindus. Now, he brought a very powerful reawakening in the Hindus in South Africa, and we see this that on the on when he on the 10th of November, 10th of in 1910. Sorry, he leads a Diwali march outside the Grey Street Mosque. Now, Swamiji, outside the mosque, takes a chariot with Ram and he starts a procession. Now, why does he do this? Now, prior to Swamiji coming to South Africa, most of the Hindus in South Africa would celebrate the festival of Muharram. Right, a tajia was made, a shrine to the shrine of the Prophet Hussein was made, and Hindus would follow behind this tajia, and they would weep and wail. Swamiji stopped this, and what does he do? He brings in Diwali. He brings in, although an Arya Samaji, but he works with from the known to the unknown. And what does he do? He revives Ram Navami and Krishna Astami. And Swamiji's take was call was back to the Vedas. And this is where he influences a lot of people like Bhavani Dayal. Now, Swami Shankar Nanji also sets the foundation for the various sanskars to be celebrated. What does he do? He initiates a few people, not just Purohits, but he trains them into the correct pronunciation of the Sandhya and the Havan. Right? A lot of emphasis is placed on the Sandhya and Havan. And his call back to the Vedas brought back a lot of pride amongst the Hindus in South Africa. Now, due to Swami Bhavani Dayal as well as Swami Shankarananji, today most Hindus are cremated. Right? Most Hindus are cremated, and prior to Swami Shankarananji, Hindus were generally buried, and but all the other ceremonies like the 10 days, 13 days, 6 months, and pindas were all done. So most of the crematoriums that we see in South Africa were established by the Arya Samaj as well. Now, Swami, there in death as well, Swami Shankar Nanji gives dignity to the Hindus in South Africa. And then he establishes the 1909, the Vedaram Sabha in Pietermaritzburg. 1912, he establishes the South African Hindu Mahasabha, a body to unite the Hindus of South Africa. Now, I've chosen about 4 or 5 people or great stalwarts of the sorry, not people, but great stalwarts or leaders of the Arya Samaj. And here we look at the role they played, right, in keeping and preserving Vedic sanskars. Right. One of them is Pandit Nainaraj. Now, he was inspired by Swami Shankarananji, who personally taught him the chanting of the Sandhya mantras. And Pandit Nainaraj further goes and studies the 16 sanskars, and he sets about uniformity in the Vivah sanskar according to the sanskar vidhi. Right? He also brings about dignity in Hindu ceremonies. And he states that every Hindu has the right to study and learn the Vedas. Now, the good thing about Swami Pandit Nainaraj is that during the establishment of the Arya Samaj in South Africa, and the centenary celebration of Swami Dayanand. He does the first Mahayagya in South Africa, and that is where people in South Africa were exposed to a Mahayagya. And he did a Yajurved Mahayagya, where 3 chapters of the Yajurved were recited. So, and then Panditji also goes into the Sikaulik area. Sikaulik area near Macro, near our Narayan Jivan center there. And Panditji, what does he do? He works amongst the staunch Puranic people, teaching them how to do Havan and the Sanskars. And in 1912, he establishes a Hindi Pachala. He establishes the Arya Mitra Mandir in Sikaulik, as well as in the Kenville area. The beauty about Pandit Naina Raj, he was fluent in what? Tamil, Telugu, as well as Hindi. The next person that we have is R.B. Maharaj. Right. Now, R.B. Maharaj, a very prominent scholar, leader in South Africa, and he was influenced by Swami Mangalan, Mangala, Mangalanand, Puri. And he was the secretary of the first Hindi conference. Now, what is unique about Pandit R.B. Maharaj is that he initiates the first non-Brahmin priest in South Africa, right? And that is Pandit Shivratan, 1941, 83 years ago. Now, Pandit R.B. Maharaj, he was involved in the Arya Samaj, a lot of social work. He also was part of the examination board of the Rashtra Bhasha Prachar Samiti, Varda, India. But Pandit R.B. Maharaj goes, even though despite all the death threats against him, he goes and he initiates Pandit Shivratan. And he even initiates him with a Yajnopavid, stating that the Vedas, study of the Vedas and the 16th Sanskar is not limited to any caste. So next person. And here we see the next person we see again is Swami Mangalan Puri, who influences people here. F. Satyapal. Right. Now, the late Mr. F. Satyapal was inspired by the teachings of the Arya Samaj and Swami Dayanand. To an extent, he was so influenced by the Arya Samaj, he decided to go against his father, and he does the first Vedic Katha 1916. Right? 1916, and he is disowned by his father for doing the first Vedic Katha. And who does it for him? Right? And it is Swami Bhavani Dayal. There we have Mr. Satyapal, disowned by his family for doing a Vedic Katha. And as we know, at that time, mostly the Satnarayan Katha was done. So we see slow changes coming in. Yes, people were not open to the changes, right? A lot of Arya Samajis around that time were treated very badly. And because of their slowly accepting the Arya Samaj, the Sanskar Vidi, as well as the Satyarth Prakash. Right. The next person we look at is Swami Bhavani Dayal. Right. Now, Bhavani Dayal was a colonial-born Hindu, right? And if one looks at his lifestyle, life, it is very sad because he was abandoned by his father because of the caste system. Now he comes to South Africa. He returns to South Africa 20th of at the age of 20 from India, and he gets involved in the works of Mahatma Gandhi and the Satyagraha movement. Right. Now he was initiated into the Arya Samaj in India, and he did a lot of work in Bihar. Right. Now, very staunch Samajist, and he faithfully preached the principles of the Vedic religion. Now, he studied Hindi, and his contribution to the propagation of Hindi is unparalleled. Right. Now, he also popularizes the Vedic sanskars, and he stresses on the performance and the pronunciation of the mantras according to the Vedic rites. Now, we see that he stresses a lot on the Vivaha sanskar, the Antyesti sanskar, as well as the Shuddhi sanskar. Now, in 1916, Bhavani Dayal does the first Shuddhi Sanskar in South Africa, where two Muslims were brought into the fold of Hinduism. Now, there's a lot of debate goes on about who brings about or who published the first Aryan prayer book. Right. Now, here from his autobiography and my reading as well, right, he publishes the first Aryan prayer book called the Arya Upasana. Right. And the Arya Upasana became a household position in every Hindu home in South Africa. Remember, Swami Bhavani Dayal aim was that everybody should learn the Havan and everybody should be empowered to do their Havan on their own. Right. Now, Bhavani Dayal, his book, the Arya Upasana, becomes very popular in South Africa. Now, it brings dignity as well as pride and honor to the Hindus in South Africa. Why? In that Hindus now, for the very first time, have a prayer book in their home, and they are able to do a simple Havan and Sandhya in their home. Prior to that, it was normally a Pandit or somebody that came and recited something. It gives them honor, as well as his Arya Upasana. A lot of the, sorry, I don't believe in this caste system, but as the so-called low caste now became empowered in that they were able to recite and do the Havan. Right. Now, also, what Bhavani Dayal does is the first Vedic wedding in South Africa, right? And we're in the heartland of the Puranic's Northern Natal Hattingsproot, right? A gentleman by the name of Sri Jivaram. His eldest daughter, Tara, is married to a gentleman by Bhairav. Right. Now, first Vedic wedding, no pre rituals, strictly according to the Sanskar Vidhi was done. Right. And here, both the bride and groom recited their own vows. Right. Now, the wedding was so good that in spite of opposition, it was adopted and became popular to the extent that hundreds of marriages in the 20s, 30s, as well as today, are done in Natal according to the Vedic Vivaha Sanskar. And today, nobody challenges it as well. Right? Now, now let's see what Swami Bhavani Dayal and why he does the Vedic wedding, right? And this is what he states in his autobiography, and I'm going to quote what he states. Right. The groom was, and I quote, the groom was so dressed that he looked like a clown on an old stage play. The bride was covered in a chadar and she looked like a bundle of clothes. Right. They, the position of the ceremony, they were positioned there during the entire ceremony, not knowing what they were doing. The rituals uh, that were performed and were not recognized by the foreigners, and people laughed at them. And the Hindu youth were deeply ashamed. Now it was time for Bhavani Dayal to revolt against traditional practices and more so the Vivaha Sanskar. And by doing the Vedic Sanskar, the Vedic Vivaha, he was able to bring back dignity to Hindu marriage. So we see Bhavani Dayal very important, and Swami Bhavan Dayal was by all account the first and the best known Arya Samajist born in South Africa. The next person we have is Pandit Ishwar Vedalankar. Comes in 1920. Now he stressed the performance of the sanskars and Havan. Now, the good thing about Swami Pandit Ishwar Vedalankar, one of the first graduates of the Gurukul Kangri, he uses the Ramayana to gather a lot of people. And he drew a lot of people. Using the Ramcharitmanas, he was able to pass on the teachings of Swami Dayanand and the Arya Samaj as well. Right. Another scholar we have is Pandit Tulsi Ram, who was influenced by Satyadev, by the late Mr. Satyadev. Now, Pandit Tulsi Ram studied the Sanskar Vidhi and he performed ceremonies according to the Sanskar Vidhi. Now, he was a teacher at the Arya Yuvak Sabha, but here again we see Pandit Tulsi Ram, 3 books he writes. Right? He edits one, Antyesti Sanskar. In 1932 brings about unity in the Antyesti Sanskar. 2, Sanatan Dharma, Satya Sanatan Dharma Kya Hai? And 3, he prints a book called the Vedic Sandhya and Havan Padati, published by the Arya Samaj. So, there again, uniformity of sanskars, recital dignity to people, proper recitals, as well as importance of sanskars given by Pandit Tulsi Ram. Then we have Pandit Jagmohan Singh, right? Pandit Jagmohan Singh was influenced by Rala Ram, and to an extent that in 1935 he goes to Lahore and he studies for 5 years. He's given the title of Vidya Ratna, and he returns 1940. He works with the Aryas Ved Dharam Sabha in Pietermaritzburg. Now, in 1945, Pandit Jagmohan Singh, with others, which I will talk about later, laying the foundation for the Vedic Purohit Mandir. Right. Other prominent Arya Samajas, Mr. Satyadev. Now, volumes can be written on Mr. Satyadev. Actually, he was given the name Satyadev by Swami Shankarananji Sanyas. And he is the chief pillar on which the Arya Samaj movement in Natal exists. He dedicated his entire life to the Arya Samaj, as well as its teachings, as well as the principles of Swami Dayanand Saraswati. Now, in the 17th of April 1912, he finds the Arya Yuvak Sabha and he establishes the Aryan Benevolent Home. I am not going to go into the story of the beggar, the incident of the beggar in the toilet. Right. Now, so one more scholar that we have here is Gajadhar Maroi. Sadly, he was sidelined. Now, Mr. Gajadhar Maroi was responsible for a lot of formation of a lot of Arya Samajas in the greater Durban area, Sydenham, Clear Estate, Springfield area. And he learned he was the sanskars under Swami Shankaranji and Bhavani Dayal. And he opened his house to a lot of people and satsangs as well. Now, he in around 1935 sends 12 students to go to Gurukul Kagani and India and study under the Gurukuls. And one of them was his son, Hari Shankar Maroy. And he comes back to South Africa in 1942, and he comes back with the title Ayurved Alankar. And he was one of the first Sanskrit teachers in South Africa. Sadly, for the Maroy family were sidelined. Today, most of the family of the Maroy family are not Arya Samajis, right? So these were some of the important or prominent people who played an important role in the preservation and introducing various sanskars as prescribed by the Sanskar Vidhi in South Africa. Now, very important for the preservation of the Vedic Sanskar, Vedic Purohit Mandir. Now the Vedic Purohit Mandir is the only institution in South Africa where priests are trained and they receive proper training training in the 16 sanskars. Now, just for this reason, Vedic priests enjoy respect in the community. Now, although it's probably the last 10 years ago, it is the Sanatan Dharma Sabha now have started initiating non-Brahmins as priests. But in 1941, they formed, 1944 and 1942, they formed the Sanatan Dharma Purohit Samaj or Sabha to stop the Arya Samajis from initiating non-Brahmins as priests. The incident of Pandit Shivratan actually initiated this as well. Now, so 1944, the first Vedic Purohit conference is held. Now, the reason for this is to have what uniformity, structure amongst all Vedic Purohits. 1944, remember that. Now, by 1944, the Vedic Viva and the other sanskars slowly started became popular in South Africa. Right? So the first Purohit conference, 1st and 2nd July, in 1944, it was chaired by Pandit Aud Bihari. Surprisingly, Aud Bihari Pandey was from Pentridge in Pietermaritzburg, one of the founder members of the Vedic Vidya Pracharak Sabha. But in the end, Pandit Aud Bihari became a staunch Sanatan Pandit, right? So at this conference as well, we have a Gurukul Snatak, Pandit Sudhir Kumar Vidyalankar, who helped guide the conference. And issues that were discussed was teachings of the 16 sanskars, the Vivah sanskars, uniformity in these sanskars, blessings of the grooms. But the final message was that all sanskar should be done according to the Vedic Sanskar Vidhi as written by Swami Dayanand Saraswati. Then we have Pandit Nadev who comes in 1947 and he builds in 1952, he establishes the Vedic Purohit Mandir, and in 1954, he initiates 6 priests who write the Sarvadeshik, they write the Siddhanta Ratna exams, which was written set by the Sarvadeshik Arya Pratinidhi Sabha. Now, a lot of work goes in to the Vedic Purohit Mandir by Pandit Nardev Vedalankar. The dignity that the Vedic ceremonies or sanskars have today is by the is given by the work of Pandit Nadev Vedalankar. Brilliant work. The manner in which he does his work and he propagates the Vedic sanskars is remarkable. But then in 1975, first woman Purohits. Now, of the 25 students, 25 ladies were ordained as Vedic Purohits. And of them, one was Pandit Padarat, Pandit Nanak Chand, and four other Purohits were ordained as Vedic Purohits. It wasn't just one individual, five people. Right. Okay. Sorry, time
Yes,
again.
your time is really moving on, and
Okay.
I think you
Right.
must round up now so
Okay.
that we can allow for some discussion.
Okay. Now, sanskars done in South Africa. All right. Coming up. Okay. First, pre-birth sanskars. Garbhadan sanskar is generally not done in South Africa. Normally amongst Arya Samaj families, we after the Vivah sanskar, the Garbhadan sanskar, Havan is done. But today, with birth planning and contraceptives, young couples should be educated into the benefits of the Garbhadan Sanskar. So when they plan a child 2 years or 3 years down the marriage, they can actually do the Garbhadan Sanskar. Namkaran, Jatkaran Sanskars, as well as the Mudan Sanskars are done in South Africa. But traditionally, it used to be a huge celebration in South Africa. Every home that did a Namkaran, Jatkaran, Mudan Sanskars, the mandirs used to be full with families doing Namkaran and Jatkaran. Sadly, it's still done in South Africa, but not as in great pomp and joy that it used to be done. So we need to educate the younger generation on the Namkaran and the Jatkaran Sanskar, Upanayan Sanskar. Now, here generally Arya Samaj families, we tend to do the Upanayan Sanskar in the mandir during the Shravani ceremony. The only, from my reading, or one sees is that of in the 1940s, the Upanayan Sanskar of what's it, Dr. Chirkut, sorry, who was done proper Upanayan Sanskar according to the Vedic Sanskar Vidhi was done by Pandit Jagmohan Singh, and that was the Sanskar Upanayan Sanskar of Dr. Chirkut. So what happens is that Arya Samajis, some of them as well as still believe that it is a ceremony for the Maraj people or the so-called Brahmin people. And we know that that Swami Dayanand says that every Hindu has the right to study learn the Gayatri Mantra, study the Vedas, and be initiated into the initiated with the Yajnopavit. Two most popular sanskars in South Africa, Vivah Sanskar, Antyeshti Sanskar. Now, why is it popular? As I said in my talk, the pioneers laid the foundation. Bhavani Dal and the others laid the foundation of the Vivah Sanskar. And why is it popular? It gives dignity. It is short, sweet, simple. Couples are able to understand the actual mantras, and they feel part of the sanskar. Now, challenges that we are facing nowadays is one, the youth of today don't want a long drawn out Vivah Sanskar. They look at Bollywood, and what comes in, the tamasa aspect comes into our Vivah Sanskar, but still the sacredness is still there. And what do they want to add in? Daru, cake cutting, meat eating, as well as song and dance. So here again, we have to look at the changing phase of the Vivaha Sanskar, but we have to maintain the sacredness of the Vivaha Sanskar. Other challenges that we need to look at is same-sex marriages, right? As much as we talk about it, Arya Samaj has been debating it, but we haven't sat down and said, right, let's drop a manual. All right, let's drop a proper manual where we can do the same-sex marriages. Still very popular, but we need to educate the youth that your sanskar vidhi is your guide and not Bollywood. Antyesti sanskar. Here again, dignity even at death goes to the Arya Samaj. We give dignity to the dead. A lot of Puranic families come to the Arya Samaj. Please, Panditji, can you send my mother or father off with dignity and respect? And we see this from the feedback that we get from the non-Hindus that attend our Antyesi sanskars. The manner in which the sanskar is done in such a dignified manner that people find closure when they lose family members. Okay, finally, in conclusion, yes, we've had a lot of people that have come and gone, and a lot of people that have that have been influenced by the teachings of Swami Dayanand and the Sanskar Vidhis. But still, not enough is being done. Not enough is being done. One, Sanskar Vidhi, the language is outdated. We need modern language as well. Two, and I've been singing this as well, new preachers, new snataks and purohits and acharyas. People may not like this, but we need new ideas, new input as well, so that we can take these sanskars into the next 50 and the next 100 years. And finally, right, more should be done at the School of Vedic Studies on the 16 sanskars and their importance in South Africa. With that, I would like to thank the committee for giving me the opportunity to present this paper on Vedic rites and rituals as practiced in South Africa. And I had to bring in the aspect of pre-Arya Samaj, our leaders, as well as what is being done today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yuvesh Pai. I'm sure everybody agrees with me and your wife that you should actually write a book on this, because you've covered a lot of great history, which a lot of our lectures actually have been saying throughout the year, but you've brought it together back into what we do as the Arya Samaj. And I think as the learned leader of the Vedic Purohit Mandal, you rightfully pulled everything together. So the issue really is that our rites and our rituals, our sanskars actually give us dignity. And we need to take that dignity through to the community. I think we will open it up for 5 minutes for anybody who wants to actually say something, to add a comment, and raise the issues. I know Rina has been telling me that she comes from Stanger, and if we have to look at where her background is, it's about that village culture. It's about that village goddess. And that's correctly so. That's what our forefathers brought from India. But over the 165 years that we've been here, a lot has been developed. And Yuvesh has been pointing out to us about the Arya Samaj's role and particularly the priest's role in keeping that alive and setting the foundations for us. Okay, are there any questions? Please raise your hands, unmute your mics if you'd like to say something.
Namaste. Can I just
Please
say
go
something?
ahead.
Okay, namaste to all of you. Just
Okay.
one question I have there. You mentioned Swami Shankar Naji arrived here in 1905 and he introduced back to the Vedas and the cremation, and he mentioned the pindas. So the question here is, why are the pindas not used today, at the Antyasthi?
See, the pindas is
Sorry,
that,
Yuvesh.
okay.
Let's not
Okay.
answer immediately. Let's thanks, Hans, for your question. Let's check if there's anybody else who wants to say anything. And thank you, Mira, for that input that you've given on the chat. That Mr. It's Mehroy, Mehroy, that that leader that Yuvesh was speaking to, Pandit Harishankar's father. And by the way, his sister is down from London in the country. So Yuvesh, although they've left the Arya Samaj, we're making attempts to bring them back. Kiran Bhai, please go ahead.
Namaste. It's not Pandit
Oh,
Kiran, it's
sorry,
Pandit Premi.
Premi.
I know this is off the topic. I would like to know from Pandit Yuvesh, Panditji, I would like to know why can't we start a campaign with regards to Diwali being a public holiday? I mean, here in Maritzburg, our members have to apply for a leave, on that special day. So we as Arya Samajas, we should form a campaign with regards to Diwali being recognized as a public holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Premi.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Yuvesh.
Okay,
Sorry.
coming to the aspect of pindas, the Arya Samaj do not believe in pindas. The pindas have the origin in the Garud Puran. Right? So as Arya Samaj, Swami Shankarananji was an Arya Samajist. And the Arya Samaj do not do pindas. So these Puranics do pindas. They do on the 10th, 13th, 16th, and 1 year. So coming back to your question, Hans, he was an Arya Samajist. He doesn't do, Arya Samaj don't do pindas. Coming back to the Meroy family, actually, Ram Hori was the brother of Pandit Meroy. Yeah, Ram Hori was the brother of Pandit Meroy. I'm actually now, their family have actually adopted me as the Purohit. I've slowly started I've done the Griha Pravesh as well as the mother's Antyasti Sanskar I did as well. Okay.
Sorry, can I just clarify again with regards to pindas?
Sorry, Hans. I'm going to suggest to you that you and Yuvesh Pai take this offline, because
Okay,
I think it is too detailed and time is running on. So I just want to check if there's anybody else who wants to ask any questions or make any comment. I want to come to the Diwali issue. I think we need to be very clear about Diwali. The United Nations has indicated that Diwali throughout the year is a no-work day. So, that's something that we should explore and we should deal with, because you know, we are a minority within a minority in South Africa, and, you know, trying to take up a case to get a public holiday when we already have so many public holidays is basically an issue. The problem is that Hindus in the country do not have pride in their own festivals and rituals. And I think while Diwali is an important function, what we need to really look at is how we unite people around the whole issue, and what mechanisms need to be used. Now, already no exams actually get written on Diwali. And as an educator, I'm sure Yuvesh will indicate how the education department deals with it. But it is off the topic completely because that's not a Vedic ritual, it's a festival. Yuvesh, go ahead.
Okay, from the school point of view, is that one, no exams are written on that day. It depends on the school population as well. Now, in my school cases, we are 100% Zulu speaking, but we have 80% Hindus at our school. You cannot close the school, right? No one has the right to shut down a school and stop the culture of learning. So what we do is teachers are entitled to 1 day of religious observation. So we apply for leave on that day so we don't go to school. You've got to apply for your leave. That's the education department. Yeah.
It's actually an entire government. It's not just
Yeah.
the education department. It's
Okay.
paid leave, actually. Premi Penji, you want to say something?
Sorry, no, Chair, it's Pandit Kiran here. I would just like to mention that, firstly, I would like to compliment Pandit Yuvesh for the presentation this evening. And he really took us from the indentured laborers right to current. And the research that was done was very intensive. I would suggest that he put it in the form of a A4 document or a booklet which can be shared with as many people as possible. And credit needs to be given to him for the amount of research and the memory that he's has pertaining to some of the, especially the historical facts. And he must also give credit to his grandmother, who he used to sit with, and she also passed on a lot of that knowledge to him, which he is now sharing with us. So thank you, Pandit Yuvesh, for that wonderful information that you've shared with us. And also, it's a pity. It's a long topic, and you know, in terms of going deeper into the sanskars itself, maybe at another stage we could invite you as the head of Vedic Purohit Mandal to focus on the performance, the rituals, and the meanings of the sanskars at a more in-depth level. I think if we can give you an opportunity at another stage, that would also, you will be doing justice to that part of the Vedic Purohit Mandal. But nevertheless, I would like to just compliment you in your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Panditji.
Thank you, Kiran Bhai, for that vote of thanks and the special thanks to the priest. I think it's a very appropriate time then for me to announce the next Back to the Veda lecture, which will be on the 19th of November. And it is still around the theme of the sanskars, sub-theme of the sanskars. It is about professionalizing the Vedic priesthood. So Yuvesh Pai has laid a very nice foundation for all of us to understand where we come from, who were the big names, big intellects that helped us come here. And Kiran Pai will actually begin to talk around this. In closing this whole idea of the 100-year celebration, we will get to the point of professionalization. But I think the more important thing is that we have started a very important conversation on the value of Vedic sanskars, and we need to make that a true South African process. Just to remind everybody that we did cover the Antyasti Sanskar, we did cover the Namkaran Sanskar, and the Garbhadhan Sanskar. In fact, the 3 prenatal Sanskars were done by the late Pandit Usha. There is a YouTube video on it. So, the sub-theme of Sanskars is looked at every year in Back to the Vedas. So there are some lectures, but I fully agree with Kiran that having Yuvesh actually come through with his interpretations, but it needs to be a more in-depth session. With that, I'd like to thank all of you for being here. And there's just one more lecture for this year where we will be talking around the professionalizing of the priesthood, obviously what is happening, why it's necessary for it to happen, and the value and the criteria that we are using for it. So that would be done on the 19th of November. And with that, I'd like to then basically ask our hosts from Pietermaritzburg, Pandit Premi Magan Bihari, to please close with Shanti Bhagat.
Namaste once again. Thank you, Pandit Yuvesh, the beautiful insight. It was very interesting. So now we will do Shanti Path. Om Dyo Shantirantariksam Shantihi Prithvi Shantirapah Shantir Oshadaya Shantihi Vanaspataya Shantir Vishwe Devaha Shantir Brahma Shantihi Sarvam Shantihi Shantir Eva Shantihi Sama Shantiredhi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste, everybody. Thank you, and happy Diwali to everybody. Shubh Deepavali.
Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste. Namaste.
Namaste.